Home sellers. As we get closer to Halloween, I want to focus on one of the biggest selling nightmares, the inspection process. I've been promising you this for weeks, but if you've ever sold a home, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Everything seems perfect. You love the buyers. They love you. They love your house. Everybody is in love. This is a great thing. And then comes inspection day, and it suddenly feels like you don't even know these people. If you want to know how to live through the nightmare, save your deal, save your money, maybe even skip the nightmare altogether, you're going to want to stick around because we're going to give you our patented nightmare inspection checklist. Hi, and welcome to Talking Realty, the go-to podcast for home sellers looking to make more money, save time, and avoid headaches. Whether you're selling a flip, a new build, an income property, or the place you call home, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Glen Whitten, 20-year realtor and founder of the Ohio Property Group. Most home sellers hate paying huge commissions to realtors. At the Ohio Property Group, we do the same things as all those other realtors, but instead of charging 6% to sell your home, we charge a low flat fee. So our sellers save thousands of dollars and get better results. To learn more, head over to talkingrealty.com, pick up our monthly newsletter or any of our free home seller tools. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Talking Realty podcast so you never miss a thing. Now, let's get to it. Oh, inspections. I'm telling you, this is the stuff that keeps us awake, not just home sellers, but probably everybody involved in the deal understands that if the deal is going to come apart, odds are this is where it's going to happen. So today I figured we would dive into some actionable advice and see if we can't equip you to sail through inspections. But first, a quick story. We had a seller. Her name is Jessica. Let's go with that. Jessica sounds good. And after multiple offers, we end up with a stellar deal. I won't bore you with the details, but the deal had an inspection contingency, like most deals. And in the course of the multiple offers, we had actually turned down a couple of other deals that were lower, but they had no inspection contingency. So the seller ultimately decided, hey, we had a pre-inspection. They did a pre-sale home inspection. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. And they felt very, very good about the fact that they had disclosed things, they had repaired everything, and they just really didn't see any issues with having an inspection. So went ahead and took the higher offer with the inspection contingency. All right, pile onto that. They had actually met this particular set of buyers at the open house. So they had quite a good rapport, always good thing. In my many years, I can tell you that buyers and sellers getting to know each other is far more often a good thing. It's much tougher to be a jerk and ask for crazy stuff when you know the person, so there's a little bit of that social contract thing going on. So fast forward, we get the inspection report and they want a new roof. Okay. And here's the important part, or a $10,000 discount. Okay. Anytime we get an ask, and we'll detail this a little bit more later, but anytime we get an ask, we go to the inspection report and we say, oh, well, did the inspector actually say it needed a new roof? So when we get to the inspection report and find the section on the roof, bunch of pictures of the roof, and right underneath, there's literally one comment under the roof, and it says, quote, roof has approximately 10 to 15 years of life, period, no issues, period, end quote. Okay, so their own inspector says there's nothing wrong with the roof. We already knew that, but thought, maybe they found something that we missed. So I don't know if this was bad advice from a buyer's agent, or maybe the buyers were showing their true money-grubbing nature. We don't really know, but here we are. So stick around, and I will tell you not only how we handled it, but how it turned out. Because it's kind of a fascinating deal, the way this one ended up. Before we go much further, I just want to give you a quick overview of today's information. There are various points where you win the inspection process, and I want to make sure you walk away from today's episode with the entire playbook. If you know me at all, you're going to know that I like to win most of the battles during the prep phase. That's why we developed our course, Living to Listing, and that so many of the problems that plague a good deal could have been resolved during the prep, or at least could have been resolved cheaper and easier during the prep, like i.e. before we stick the sign in the yard. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to move into how to negotiate the inspection process and the terms of the inspection, because there is definitely some meat on that particular bone. Then we're going to talk about the inspection itself, the day of the inspections, and what you should and shouldn't do, and kind of what to expect. I'll even provide you with our secret, not so secret inspection prep checklist. We'll add that into the show notes, but that's about 2 pages of things you can do in fairly short order to help smooth the road. Then the biggie, once we get the inspection report, we find out what the buyer is asking for and how we can navigate that process without blowing the deal, hopefully. Then we're going to talk about some hardball tactics, the bare knuckle part of the negotiations where we're talking about real dollars and real terms. And then finally, I will wrap up with the rest of Jessica's story and some final advice. So that's what you're in for today. And so let's dive right in. So before you put this house on the market, you would be doing yourself a major disservice if you don't go through every square inch of that house. Because I promise you, most buyers are going to go through every square inch of that house looking for things that are going to cost you a lot more money down the road. The truth always comes out. It's just a matter of when. And I'm telling you, when it comes out and how it comes out is going to be directly correlated into how much it costs you. And as a rule of thumb, when you're the one that finds it, it will cost you less. So just keep that in mind as we talk about this. So one of my favorite strategies is to get a pre-sale home inspection. They cost, I don't know, a couple $100, if that. Definitely worth their weight in gold. At a minimum, you're going to end up with this to-do list. It's got color photos. It's got commentary from a licensed home inspector that tells you everything you need to know. And the great thing about this is the home inspector is there knowing that they're doing a pre-sale inspection, and you're going to give them the following instructions. Be as thorough as possible. We don't like surprises when the deal is under contract. So let's get the surprise out of the way before it goes on the market. The good news about anything you find is now you've got a to-do list of things you need to either fix, that would be the best thing, and disclose. So if you can't fix it, you definitely need to disclose it. And if you do fix it, I would still disclose it. When you have your to-do list and you do this before you're on the market, you are not on the clock. If we find stuff wrong with the property after it goes under contract, we are on the clock. The tension is extremely high. The love tank is draining day by day by day between you and the buyer. And we need as much in that tank as possible to get us successfully through to the closing. So before you go on the market, you've got the opportunity to get quotes. You've got the opportunity to maybe schedule with somebody who's a little less expensive, but a little further out. When you're under contract, you don't have those options. You got to go with probably emergency pricing, probably weekend and off-peak pricing or peak pricing. And you're going to pay them rush fees and all sorts of things to prioritize them to get here quicker. Or you're going to end up overpaying and getting somebody who's not very good because they're available, because all the good contractors are busy for the next 10 weeks. So by doing this ahead of time, you're saving time, you're saving money, and you're probably saving a deal. The other good thing that a pre-sale inspection does for you is it gives you something to brag about. By publishing an inspection that you've already done and paid for, they're going to give you a PDF version, which we can upload into the MLS. We can email it out to interested buyers. You can print out a copy, leave it at the house during open house. Lots of things you can do with that, but it is definitely a brag-worthy thing. And many times when you have a pre-sale home inspection, the buyers won't even ask for an inspection. You're saving them hundreds of dollars and the anxiety because now you've done the work for them. It's a very transparent sort of thing to do. Now, some buyers will still go ahead and pay to have an inspection done, but because you've done your due diligence, it's highly unlikely they're going to find something that you don't already know about, you haven't already addressed and disclosed. So all good things. And as far as disclosure goes, in the state of Ohio, sellers have to fill out a residential property disclosures in most cases. When you fill it out, it's about 4 or 5 pages, and it covers pretty much every mechanical system in the house, the roof, the water, the foundation, on and on, the heating. And your job as a seller is to give the last few years of physical history of the property. Nobody is expecting a perfect house. So I say be transparent. Let them know. If you had a leaky sink 3 years ago and you fixed it, put it on the disclosure. If you had termites that you found 5 years ago and they were treated and it comes with a X year warranty, talk about it. If you had a basement that leaked a few years ago, so you had it waterproofed by so-and-so waterproofing, and it comes with a lifetime transferable warranty, talk about it. These are all good things because home buyers understand unless they're buying a brand new build, it's probably got some problems that it's had. And the nice thing is when they see that leaky sink or the termites or the waterproofing on the property disclosure, they know that you are being honest with them. And when you're disclosing minor stuff, they get sort of this warm feeling that you've told them everything. Because who's going to hide something huge but then disclose this tiny little sink thing that nobody's going to care about? It's a trust indicator. Also, anything on the disclosure, anything that you tell the buyer about during negotiations, or even better, before negotiations, either in the marketing remarks or on the property disclosure, is now off limits. You know, they can check it out. They can maybe even get out of the deal if it's more severe than they thought it was, but they can't hold you up over this during inspections because you already told them about it. So let's just say you tell them, hey, I've got a cracked heat exchanger in the furnace. Okay, well, that's going to need to be fixed at some point. But you've told them about it. You just didn't have the money to fix it. Okay, that's fine. They can't come back to you later and say, hey, man, that furnace has got a cracked heat exchanger. You need to give us another $5,000 off. Well, no, because I told you about it ahead of time. You bought it knowing about it, and that information was baked into the price. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to mark it down again because I already marked it down when I sold it to you. So that's kind of your standard answer. But when you have issues that pop up on the pre-sale inspection, if you cannot afford to fix them, you still are going to want to disclose them. Not only it's the right thing to do and it gets you off the hook for inspection surprises down the road that could kill a deal because you've talked about it, you're also building trust, but there's probably some legal implications depending on where you live. If you know about a problem and you don't tell the future owner, I told you the earlier it comes out, the better. Well, let's play it out. When it comes out before the sale, excellent. Now it's negotiated in and it's non-issue. When it comes out during inspections, you already heard my speech on that. It's more expensive and it's more likely to kill the deal. Let's keep going. What if it comes out after closing? Well, you think you're off the hook. Well, no, because people get sued every day for stuff like this. If you had, let's say, that cracked heat exchanger, unless you're an HVAC person, in which case you would have fixed it, the only way you knew about that was more than likely you had somebody look at it and tell you. So let's go down the road a few months. We're now into the winter months. They turn on the furnace and they decide, hey, let's have so-and-so heating and air come out and let's have them clean it up and get it ready for use. And it just happens to be the same so-and-so heating and air that told you that it had a cracked heat exchanger. Now they have smoking gun proof that you knew about it. All right. I'm not saying that will happen to you. I'm just saying that the odds are if you try to cover it, it's probably not going to go well for you karmically or legally or in any other particular way. Okay. So if you do have this problem of a cracked heat exchanger, or you've got a roof that you know is at the end of its life, or maybe a septic issue, these are very expensive issues. The thing to do is, yes, disclose it, but depending on the severity of it, I would put it in the marketing, which I know sounds very counterintuitive. Like, why would I tell the world that I've got this house for sale, but it's got an old roof or it needs a new furnace? Well, you would tell the world because you need to attract the kind of buyer that can handle that. So that buyer might be a contractor, or it might be an investor, or it just might be a cash heavy person who can take a swing on it. They'll buy your house. They see all the other good things. They're going in, quote unquote, eyes wide open. If you do happen to attract a buyer that loves it but can't afford it, there's always the escrow option. Almost every lender, if you give them enough time and enough notice, if you tell the lender, hey, I've got this furnace that needs to be replaced, the buyer wants to buy the house, I can't afford to fix it until I get the proceeds from the sale. Like after I sell the house, yes, then I'll have the cash to fix it, but I have the money to fix it now. The buyer doesn't have the money to fix it. What do? We set up an escrow account. And that's a little bit deeper dive, but if you talk to your lender and your title company and say, hey, look, we need to set up an escrow, what they'll do is they'll have you get a couple of quotes for the work that needs to be done. Those quotes will get sent to the lender who will approve it. And typically they don't take the quote, they take the quote plus some, buffer. So they might, let's just say if the quote is 5,000, they might want 7,000 set aside just for any additional problems that get run into. So when the deal closes, this escrow account will get set up by the title company. The lender will approve it. The loan will fund. You'll get your money, but 7,000 of it is going to sit in that account. When the furnace gets fixed and the bill gets submitted back to the title company, the funds will get released to pay the bill. Anything that's left over goes back to you, the seller. So that's a great creative way. And again, almost every lender will let you do this sort of thing. So that's what you need to do before you sell, is get the pre-inspection, do a great job of disclosure, and possibly even market the problem if it's severe enough. And downside is if you don't market it and it's a big deal, you're just going to keep running into it over and over and over and over again. Everybody's going to be spinning their wheels, and you're going to show a history online of going under contract and coming out of contract, going under contract, out of contract. Going under contract and coming out is not the end of the world. In fact, the next episode we do is called The Rebound. We're going to talk about that very issue. But doing it over and over and over is rightfully is a red flag. So you don't want to be that person. So if you know you're going to run into the wall, let's call out the wall and maybe even do what we can to remove it or build a bridge over the wall. Okay. Next up is negotiations. So this is not a difficult topic. When the offer comes in, there's generally, in almost every offer form, there's a whole section dealing with inspections. And the first part of it is going to say whether or not the buyer wishes to do any inspections. So their first option is to accept the home as is with no inspections. That's a good day. I love offers that have no inspection contingency. All right. So if you do what I told you in terms of the prep, you're far more likely to see that on your offer. But if you skip it for whatever reason and you put the house on the market anyway, your odds are if it's a residential property, you're going to have an inspection. Very few people buy homes without some sort of inspection. So if it's a competitive market, you may see buyers come in and just go crazy on price. They just go way over list price or whatever because they want that house. But they've got this inspection built in. This is a bid you up, beat you up situation. So they're going to bid the deal up so they get the house fully expecting to beat you up during inspections and appraisal. So be careful of that. We calculate if a deal falls apart roughly 70% of the time, almost 3/4 of the time, it's because of inspections. It's some sort of inspection issue. Now, they may use inspections because they got cold feet. The buyer may get cold feet. They're kind of shaky anyway. Maybe they got a little bit of a hangover from the bidding war. And then they get this inspection report back. And remember, home inspectors, like it or not, their job is to inspect. It's pretty hard pressed to find a home inspector that's going to hand over, after a 3-hour inspection, a piece of paper that says, oh, everything's great. You got no problems. That's just not what home inspectors do. Their job's to find problems. There are a lot of great home inspectors out there who do a very good, fair, unbiased, transparent job. And they're calling out what they see. So we'll just say mileage may vary on this. So if you get a deal that has an inspection contingency, one of the tricks they like to use is the no remedy offer, which means, hey, we're going to do the inspections, but we're not going to ask you for anything, okay? It's all fine. We're just going to inspect just so we have a little to-do list. And they'll write in the cover, we won't ask for anything. Well, keep in mind that what they tell you, if it's not in the offer, it's not real. It doesn't exist. If they say no remedy, make sure that entire remedy section is crossed off in the offer, because it's in every one of them. It's what to do if we find problems. And typically the way the language is written is they've got so many days to do the inspection, and then they've got sometimes so many days to report, and then they've got so many days to negotiate, Or in many cases, at the end, it says if the buyer is unsatisfied with the property, they can just walk away and get their earnest money back. So you got to keep that in mind. All right. But if they say, hey, we're not going to ask for anything, one, get it in writing. And two, understand that this is a state of mind. This is their state of mind right now. Because let's just play this out. They do the inspections. They decide they don't want the house. You're going to ask them why, what happened. And then guess what? We're probably negotiating. Because if they say, oh man, we found out this, the furnace or this or that, you're going to attack that more than likely. You're going to say, well, what if we did this, this, and that? And no, what are we doing? We're negotiating inspections, just like we would if they hadn't said no remedy. So no remedy, unless they also remove their option to cancel the deal, no remedy is almost useless. It's just a way to sweeten the deal without really sweetening the deal. So another favorite is we will only ask for repairs if they are above a certain dollar amount. Usually it's $500, $1,000, sometimes $2,000. Again, this looks really, really fancy, but if they have a $700 or $800 or $900 problem, first of all, I can find somebody who can turn that into a $2,000 problem if I wanted. And second of all, I'm probably going to ask for it. And we see it all the time. I'm not going to ask for it, and then they turn around and ask for it. I'm not going to ask for any repairs, and then they turn around and ask for stuff. I'm not going to ask for anything less than $500, and then they find 12 things that are $50 each. So now we're at $600. Oh, hey, we're over $500. In other words, these are all just window dressing on the offer. So if it has an inspection contingency, they're either going to take it as is after the inspection, or they're going to ask for some repairs or money, or they're going to walk away. Okay. I don't care what they tell you ahead of time. Those options exist in the world as we know it on every one of these deals. But let's say you get lucky and you've got a buyer who legitimately crosses off the entire inspection. They waive all inspections, all of them. They don't want anything. And then about a week into the deal, you get a showing request, or you get an email or a text or a phone call that says, hey, we want to stop by with our contractor just so he can check everything out. Okay, where I come from, that's called an inspection. And they have no legal exit strategy. If that contractor finds something that's a deal breaker, they can still kill the deal either through another contingency, or they can just walk away, maybe sacrifice their earnest money, maybe not. We'll talk about earnest money another day. My advice is to politely decline that visit. If they want measurements, send them measurements. You're perfectly capable of taking measurements. Just let them know. Never say more than you have to, by the way. That's a great rule of thumb for most. It's not good for podcasters. It's not good for advice givers. But when you're in negotiations, never, ever say more than you have to. So if they request the showing, you just tell them no. You don't have to even say it's not a good time, because you don't owe them an explanation. They have no legal means until the walkthrough, if there is one. If there's a final walkthrough, that's all it is. Final verification to make sure that you didn't like have a hole in the roof that you created after they looked at the house during the showing that you didn't fix. Did you maintain the property? Did you do bad, terrible things? So the final walkthrough, that's what it is. And it's usually baked into the contract somewhere in that 1, 2, 3 days before closing. That's unavoidable. But if they come to you and they want for any reason to come back through that property, be very careful. I'm not saying be a jerk. If the times we look the other way is when it's like, hey, the one spouse looked at it, but the other one hasn't seen it yet, or it's that they got kids that haven't seen it and that maybe they want to see it. That's fine. But in that case, I would recommend staying there. Say, yeah, stop by. Don't schedule a showing. Don't even bring your agent. Just come on by. But I'm very uncomfortable with this. I will tell you that, because I've seen deals come apart over these where the contractor shows up, tells them stuff they didn't know. And again, they got the deal, they got your attention by waiving all inspections, but then effectively they did an inspection, and I don't know where they're going to do it, but at some point they're going to bring up what they found, and it's going to cost you the deal, or it's going to cost you some money. So I would just say you need to let them know that they can go through this house all they want as soon as they close, as soon as they get possession. And also, we have a rule in the office that the love tank, the love peaks between the buyer and seller. The love peaks at the offer, and then it slowly drains. And the goal is to have enough left in the love tank to get through all the ups and downs and get all the way through to closing. If you run out of love before closing, you greatly increase the odds that you're not going to close. This applies all across the entire process, during the showing, during the offer phase, during the inspections, but a lot of love gets used up during the inspections. So keep that in mind as you are negotiating. So if you're going to be a jerk during negotiations, then I would say you're shooting holes in your love bucket. It's draining faster than it should. So don't waste fuel when you don't have to. If they ask for inspections, let them inspect. I don't care if you're in multiples and you've got deals that don't have inspections that you want to use to pit them, you can certainly say, hey, we've got other offers that are stronger. Almost every agent, every buyer will say, well, what do you mean by stronger? Oh, well, they didn't ask for any inspections, for one. All right, you're not asking them to not ask for inspections. You're just telling them that makes it a stronger offer, which pretty much everybody knows. But if you outright say, well, if you remove the inspections, you're sending up major red flags. So don't do it. If you're in a single offer, let the inspections stand. If they're asking for more than, say, 7 or 10 days for inspections, I would probably tighten that up. Sometimes we get them and they were 15, 20 days for inspections. Way too long. It's way too long. Just counter that back and just say we can wrap these up in a week. So let's do that. But other than that, I wouldn't I have sellers that try to counter back and say, take out all the inspections. You're killing the deal. You are killing the deal. Let them inspect, and then let's deal with whatever they may or may not ask later. We talked in a previous episode about laying the foundation for letting them know that you're not going to negotiate. You can do that now. As most of you know, we do not run paid ads for the Ohio Property Group, for our podcast, our YouTube channel, anything. We rely solely on word of mouth. So if you find any of this content useful or even a little fun, would you mind taking a few seconds, give us a quick rating, a thumbs up, whatever it is you're looking at, and maybe take a few extra seconds and give us a review. If you do, I would consider it a personal favor. All right, let's get you back to your regularly scheduled broadcast. So let's move on. Now we've made it through the marketing, the offer, and we're rolling up to inspections. So the way this works is once the deal is under contract, typically if the buyer has an agent, they will go ahead and almost immediately schedule whatever inspections there are. Now, there are a bunch of different kinds of inspections. So let's cover those very quickly. First, there's the general inspection, or sometimes called the whole house inspection. It covers pretty much exactly what you would think. These are general inspectors. In the state of Ohio, they have to be licensed. It depends on where you are, but most states require that these be licensed individuals. We'll touch back on that in a little bit. Typically takes between 2 and 4 hours. So pack a lunch. Usually the buyer, sometimes the buyer agent, but many times not. But the buyer almost always attends. Of course, the inspector is going to be there. So you may have just the inspector. More often than not, you're going to have the inspector plus the buyer. And then occasionally the buyer agent will be there. As far as specialized inspections, you've got termite. They call it wood destroying insects, but essentially you're looking for termites, carpenter ants, carpenter bees, things that destroy wood, i.e. wood destroying insects. Those usually last about 30 minutes, and typically it's an exterminator that comes to do that. It's almost, nobody ever comes to those things, so you don't even need to be there. And you typically get those results right away. Unlike the whole house inspection, it's usually a day or two for them to go back, type everything up, upload it. So just because they inspected this morning doesn't mean you're going to get results right away. So keep that in mind. With termite, they're going to know right away. It might take them a day to get the report out, but they're going to have it pretty fast. With radon, in Ohio, we see this on maybe 15, 20% of deals will ask for radon. So it's a 2-part test. So there's a drop off. They put this equipment somewhere in the basement or the crawl space or the lower level. There's some instructions about opening doors and windows that you're not supposed to do. And you'll get a whole email ahead of time from the inspector telling you what to do and not do. But anyway, the first appointment, they drop off the equipment, and this is air monitoring equipment. And then usually 2 days, sometimes 3 days later, they schedule another appointment to pick it up. As they come in, they show up, they pick up their stuff. So those guys are in and out quickly. A lot of times, if they have a whole house inspector, they can do radon because the machine does most of the work. So they may drop it off during the whole house inspection, then come back 2 days later to pick it up. If they have a separate radon company, they'll show up at a different time, drop it off, they'll come back 2 days later, they'll be in and out in 10 minutes. And then typically it's a day or two, and nobody comes with them, just like the termite. The well inspection, if you're in the country or you're on well water, usually it's the county that does it. They'll usually come out. You don't even need to be there. Sometimes it's nice if you are, because you can talk to them, but they just do some water sampling and then they check it for bad stuff, E. coli, stuff like that. So if it's bad, most of the time it's just going to cost you a few dollars in bleach, because you're going to shock the well. And if you already have a well, you probably already know this. So you're just going to shock it and retest. It's not a huge deal. It's usually a $50 or $75 test. And for whatever reason, well and septic tests are almost always paid for by the seller. I don't know where that tradition started, but it's negotiable. But it's usually not worth fighting. Septic inspection, usually again, the county or somebody that the county has deputized or authorized, like a septic contractor or somebody like that. But those are the only people that can do it. Everything goes through the county on septic. And again, this is Ohio. It might be different where you are, but this is typically how it works. Once again, they don't need to come inside. They just need to inspect the equipment and do some other things, some voodoo outside that I don't know what it is. And it's typically a long window. Like they'll tell you they'll stop by Tuesday, or sometime between Tuesday and Friday. Like you don't know when they're going to come. So they're just going to show up and you'll see some stranger lurking in your yard, and they'll probably have a county vehicle, so it's not too mysterious. And you get the results pretty much right away. Again, within a day or so, they're going to fax or email over the results to whoever ordered the test. You can do this, by the way, before you put the house on the market. It's not a bad idea just to pre-inspect all these things that I mentioned, because anytime you can hand over those written reports to potential buyers, puts them at ease, helps them select your home over every other, and maybe even pay more, because now you're saving them, hundreds of dollars in inspections and time and heartache. Now, if the septic is bad, then that's generally a pretty expensive thing. And here's another hard stop. You usually can't sell the house. If the septic is bad, the county won't let you. And again, this varies by county, even within Ohio, but a lot of counties will not let that property transfer. So this goes back to what we talked about earlier. If you don't have the cake to do a new septic, because they're not cheap, depending on where it is and what it is, it could be, 5 figures. Again, we can bake that into the price, negotiate. This is one of those things you're going to want to call out. Hey, it needs a new septic. So we've priced it to include a new septic. Or if the person buying it says that's okay, I'll pay for the septic, then you can negotiate that price back out. It's no problem. But more often than not, they're going to want that money. So you're going to set that money aside in an escrow account, and the county will then let it transfer as long as there's an escrow account. Again, it varies. Mileage may vary by county. You're going to want to check with the county health department. They're going to have that information. Okay. By the way, no county can check a septic system for functionality if the house has been vacant for more than 30 days. So if you have somebody living in it, like it's say a renter or yourselves, and they're moving out and you're going to put the house on the market, get the septic test done before the 30 days is up, because then at least you have something on paper that says, hey, I know it's been 2 months since anybody's lived there and you can't retest it, but we had it checked by so-and-so on such and such date. Here's the paperwork. All right. This is a real problem because sometimes homes get renovated and they sit empty for months, and then nobody can check the septic. And a buyer is nervous because they know these can be very expensive and there's no way to check it. They can look at it, but they can't really test it for functionality till somebody's lived there for 30 days at least, and no vacancies of more than 30 days. Okay. Enough about that. Last on my special list is the mold inspector. We're seeing this maybe 5% of the time. And typically it's not, every once in a while, somebody will ask for a mold inspection right out of the gate. But more often than not, what happens is the general whole house inspector sees something they think could be maybe mold. So instead of, because they're not qualified, they'll just write down, you should have this checked out. Get ready for a bunch of that. If you don't do a pre-sale home inspection, and nail all this stuff down, it's entirely possible, especially if you have an older, larger home, that you're going to see a bunch of sections that just say, this might be a problem. Oh, we saw some weird electrical. I'm not an electrician, but it looks weird to me, so you might want to get it checked out. I saw some weird plumbing. It looks weird to me. You might want to get it checked out. And then all of a sudden, your one inspection turns into 12 inspections, and everybody's freaking out, and it's not fun. Well, mold is one of those. If they see something on the rafters or in the crawl space or in a closet, it could be something extremely harmless. There are literally thousands of garden variety mold specimens in every home, even if it's brand new. However, there are only 2 that are dangerous, 2 out of the thousands. Well, those 2 are extremely dangerous. So that's why people are so freaked out, because if it happens to be one of those 2, then that's a problem, and it's not a cheap fix most of the time. So when you see something that even resembles mold or mold's cousin, you're going to want to deal with it. So better off getting somebody out there. It's going to cost you a few $100s, but get it out there, get it looked at, get it tested, find out what it is, and then, good or bad, get rid of it, get it treated. And I'm not saying go down to Lowe's and buy some stuff to spray on it. I'm saying get a professional so that you have paperwork to back it up. That's the stuff that'll get you sued for everything. All right, so be careful there. All right, so those are the types of inspections. And sometimes FHA or VA requires a wood destroying insect, a termite inspection, and in most parts of the country. And then FHA is even starting to require some termite inspections, even on new builds. So there's a few things to think about there. I've got an upcoming episode with a friend of mine who's a mortgage broker. His name is Rex Graz with Union Home Mortgage, and he provided me with a really cool little financing required inspection cheat sheet. So maybe we'll link to that in the show notes. It'll be called Rex's cheat sheet, by the way, and I'll stick that in there. So depending on what type of loan your buyer has, this sheet could help you identify if you have issues in your home that you need to address before you accept those offers. So as far as scheduling, after the deal comes together, one of the first things that's going to happen is the buyer or the buyer agent is going to schedule all the inspections. And unless you're paying for the inspection, you're not the one scheduling it. It's just going to come through showing time, or they're going to call, text, email you and say, hey, the whole house inspector wants to come out Tuesday at 4 or whatever. And then you're going to get a list of these inspectors. And just because the buyer asked for the inspection in the contract doesn't mean they're going to do it. And the last thing you want to do is bug them. Like, hey, you forgot to do your termite inspection. It's not your job. Once the inspection period is up, it's done. It's over. If they didn't get it done, too bad. So we'll talk about missed deadlines here in a little bit. But don't bug them. Just wait for the requests to come in and smile and, make the time. There's one inspection I really like you to be there for. I'd like you to be there for all of them. If I'm a home seller, I recommend you be there for all of them because of questions. That's the biggie. The inspector may have questions on how to access something or why something looks a certain way or how something works, and you can save yourself a lot of trouble. We just had a $1 million home go under contract, had a whole hullabaloo during the inspection because they couldn't get the furnace to work. Well, it is the dead of summer right now. The furnace is not on. And I'm guessing there's some voodoo they need to do to turn it on, because this is not a simple house with one little unit. It's got multiple units. So instead of saying, hey, we couldn't figure out how to make the furnace work, which a whole house inspector is not going to say most of the time, they wrote, furnace doesn't work. I kid you not. Furnace doesn't work. Well, I'm pretty sure it does work. So, in fact, we know it does now. But at the time, the seller was just like, you got to be kidding me. Now, had the seller been there, this probably wouldn't have happened. So, just saying. So I'd like you to be there, but they're going to more than likely ask for it. There's a chance whatever time they ask for is not convenient for you. I will tell you, you can push back lightly. Like, hey, if you can do it, give them another time. See if they can do it then. If they can't fit your schedule, you're just going to have to let it happen. You don't want to delay the inspections. Ask for a different time if it works better for you, but don't say no. Don't just say, no, you can't do it then because I can't be here for a week because I'm traveling. You don't want to do that. Best case, you're there. Next best case, somebody you trust, somebody who maybe knows a little bit about the house, maybe an adult child, a neighbor, former owner, if you're friends with them, whatever. Somebody you trust, let's send them in. If you can't get anybody there, let the inspection happen and we'll pick up the pieces later. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So if you're going to be there, besides answering questions and concerns in real time, let me think of another example. Fireplaces. Oh my gosh. Can't tell you the number of reports we've gotten back that says like the gas fireplace, we couldn't get it to work. And they didn't say they couldn't get it to work. What they said was, it doesn't work. Not true. They couldn't figure it out. We've had them tell us that they couldn't get the ceiling fan to work because they didn't know where the switch was. Okay. No lights in the basement. Not true. Plenty of lights in the basement. They just don't know where things are. So couldn't access the crawl space. One of my favorites. And all the buyer does is dream up all this terrible stuff that's going on in the crawl space that they can't see. Well, if you had been there, you could have pointed that out. But if you can't be there, I understand. Leave breadcrumbs, leave notes for things that you understand are going to be problematic. Post-it notes, don't care. Make a short video walking around showing where stuff is and email it to your broker, whatever. Do something to help alleviate these things. But the other reason I want you there is when the seller is there, very often molehills stay molehills. They do not morph into mountains. I have witnessed situations where a buyer agent is in the house with the inspector and the buyer, and they find something, and the inspector sometimes or the agent will want to impress the buyer with their extensive knowledge about something that they know very little about. And so they will pontificate. And instead of impressing the buyer, what they're doing is scaring the hell out of the buyer. Wow, I didn't realize that. And in the back of their mind, am I being a fool? Am I a sucker? Should I get out of this deal? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And the next thing you know, I've got a buyer who's running for the hills or asking for a massive payday because this house is so messed up. Well, when the seller is there, for some reason, it doesn't happen like that because it's pretty hard to talk garbage on somebody's house when they're standing right there. Okay. Now, I'm not saying hover. I'm not saying follow them from room to room and be in their business, but be there, be around, be within earshot. You can dust, you can walk around playing Pokemon Go. Do people, I don't know if people still do that, but anyway, you could do that. There's probably a handful of things you could do to look busy in your house, but be there and kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening. The other thing you do is gauge, I call it reading the room. You can read the room. Lots of people call it reading the room, not just me. You can read the room and see what's going on. How it's the interaction between the buyer and their agent and the inspector. If they're still talking and joking and laughing with you, that's a good sign. If they get very quiet and conspiratorial, you may be having a problem and just don't know it yet. Sometimes the agent or the inspector can turn into a jerk. That happens. I'm not really sure what that phenomenon's about, but it happens. But overall, what's the vibe between the buyer and the seller and the agent, and how are they interacting with you? I'm not going to kid you. Some agents are really put off. So even some inspectors, which I don't get, are put off by having the seller there during a home inspection. In fact, we just had one last week. Agent blowing up my phone. It's an emergency. It's an emergency. You got to call me ASAP, ASAP. Well, I wasn't in a place where I could call her, so I emailed her several times. What do you need? 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 Come to find out that she showed up for the home inspection. The home inspector and the buyer are there, and the seller was there because they followed my advice. And this agent was trying to throw the seller out of her own house. So you have to remind them it's still their house and this is still America. So they can be there. Yeah, they still own it. Well, this is the buyer's time to be alone in the house. No, it isn't. That time comes after closing and possession. That's when that happens. There's no rule anywhere in the world that says that the seller cannot be in their own home during the inspections. It might be a little weird for you at first, but smile, offer some cookies, whatever it is you want to do to make them feel welcome. It's pretty hard to be mean to somebody when they're being really, really nice. So just kill them with kindness and that will help. The other thing you can pick up on is see if there's any stuff that the buyers appear to be interested in. If they start asking you, if during the inspection, if they're asking you stuff like, hey, is that piece of furniture for sale? Okay, that You tuck that away. First of all, I can use that later. So just tell them you'll get back to them if it's something you're actually willing to part with. Now, if it already has a price tag on it, I mean, obviously you can point to that and start negotiating, but I'd prefer you save that back because we may need it down the road. We can sell that to them later. But let me know if you're my listing, let your broker know that they are asking those questions. And then furthermore, as they get further and further into the inspection, are they still asking about things that indicate to you that they're probably going to be living there? They're asking about where's the nearest doctor? Where's the nearest grocery store? Where's the nearest whatever? What's your favorite restaurant? Where do you get ice cream around here? I would always ask that, by the way. I think it should be a required field, is the number of ice cream places within a certain circle. I'm thinking a mile. Anyway, so if you can start to see those signals happening, that's going to give you a quick indication that this is headed in a good direction. Again, if they get quiet, conspiratorial, they're icing you out. It doesn't mean they're not going to move forward. It just means that the road's going to be a little tougher. It could mean that they're freaking out. But anyway, so before they leave, if you're there, I need you to remember a couple of things. One, make no promises. If they find a problem, do me a favor. If you're represented by a broker, do not start shouting out, "Oh, you're right, I'll take care of that." Maybe you will, and you probably will, but let's do it the right way because we don't know what else they're going to ask for. And until they ask for it formally, it didn't happen. They didn't ask for it. But if you start making promises during the inspections and I, as your broker, don't know about them, that puts me at a disadvantage. And it could end up being a little bit detrimental for you. So no promises. And the other thing is I want you to ask them before they leave, how'd it go? Even though you probably heard most of it, I still want you to say, how'd it go? And then I want you to just freeze and look for a reaction. How are they treating you? What's going on? And you can feed that information back to me. All of this helps when it comes to getting ready for the next phase, which is the post-inspection negotiation, which we will talk about next. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that on our website, Talking Realty, in the show notes, I am going to have this little baby. I don't know if you can read it or not. It says inspection checklist. This is an interior, exterior, pretty simple checklist that you can use before your inspection to get ready that will make the process smoother and easier. This inspection checklist is part of a much longer set. There's about 50 pages that we give away for free. It's part of our pre-sale checklist series. It's free on talkingrealty.com. So I'll just leave that to you. So now we've made it through the sale. We've made it through the negotiation. We've made it through inspection day. And now we get to the final part of the process where we are talking about results. What did they find and what do they want? So the waiting, as they say, is the hardest part. It really, really is. And I've got sellers who will want to check in. They want to check in. Hey, what's going on over there? I'm going to tell you, sit on your hands and don't. All right. They have a certain number of days to get you those results. Remember, RTFC, read the freaking contract and map out on your little calendar. If they have 7 days to do inspections, that first day, day one, is the day after acceptance. So if you ink a deal on a Sunday, they have until the following Sunday at 11:59 p.m. to do their inspections. But know your dates. Read the freaking contract and know your dates. Get them down on paper and make sure everybody agrees. All right. So the waiting is really, really difficult. Do resist the urge to check in with the buyer's camp. They'll get them to you when they're ready. They have 7 days to inspect and report their findings. There are usually a couple of other caveats. They have to give you a written list of things they want repaired, or a written request for money if they're going to do that. And they have to give you the inspection results. This happens every stinking day. Licensed, quote unquote, experienced realtors will send me an email that says, okay, we're done with inspections. And I just say, great. The buyer would like $10,000 off, and that will cover everything. What's everything? Oh, you don't want to know. Actually, I do. I do kind of want to know because the contract says you can't ask for anything unless you give me a specific list of what's wrong and an inspection report from a licensed home inspector demonstrated that there's a problem so that we can verify these things. And I can't believe I still in 2024 have to explain this to people, but we do. We have to explain this all the time. And I've even had agents say, well, you really don't want these results because then you'll have to disclose them. Okay, well, that tells me everything I need to know about that character, because I want to know and I want to disclose, because it's harmful to the public if people are buying stuff that someone somewhere in the world knows is a problem. The other scenario is that they could be just bluffing. Happens all the time. They try to send me this big scary note that, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe how many things are wrong with this house. But I'll tell you what, for $10,000, it'll all go away. Just tell the seller if they'll stroke a check for $10,000 or just knock 10 grand off the price. We'll move ahead. We'll waive all the inspections. Okay. Negotiations 2.0. First of all, if they miss a deadline, so if it's 7 days to get me the results and get all the inspections done and get me everything in writing, and it's day 8, they are now outside the window. These are not negotiable windows. If they need more time, they should ask for more time, and then we do a written addendum. If they need 2 more days because there's an inspection problem that they can't get the results back yet, maybe the radon got picked up on day 7 and they don't have time to turn around the results, or the mold got picked up on day 7 and they don't have time to get the lab work done. The buyer's camp, their job is to come to you before the end of the inspection period and ask for an extension. Okay. And if you're a good seller, you're going to just let them have it. So as long as it's reasonable, not another 7 days, but maybe a day or 2. If they miss the inspection with no communication, what I like to do is congratulate the buyer's camp on a successful clearing of inspections. It's a great little email. It just says, hey, congratulations on getting through what can be the most tense time in an entire contract. And I want to thank you for being so professional and so forth. And it's a very nice little email. And I send it out when we really are through with inspections. But if they don't acknowledge that we're done with inspections, I'll acknowledge it for them. So I send out this little congratulations email to the buyer's camp. And when I say buyer's camp, I'm loosely referring to either the buyer, if they're unrepresented, or the buyer's agent. So just so you know. So I send it to the buyer's camp, and then they're going to get one of 2 things. Either they're going to say, oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate the note. That was nice. Okay, guess what? You're done. Inspections are cleared. If you want to memorialize it with a note that says they're taking it as is, you can, but that's overkill. Go back and read it. It probably says if they fail to provide you with this stuff by the end of the inspection period, that they are automatically accepting the house as is. So you do you, RTFC, and see what you need to do. If, on the other hand, you're pointing out that they're late and they don't think they're late, they're going to go nuclear on you, and they're going to reply, what are you talking about? We haven't gotten you a results yet. That's when you go back. I don't care how many times you've read the contract, read it again and have somebody else read it with you, just because you don't want to embarrass yourself and drain, because this will completely drain the love tank if you're wrong. So come back to them after you've read it and you're sure you're right. And I love screenshots. I love to take a quick screenshot of that section of the contract and send it back to them and say, hey, the way we're reading this is acceptance date was here. The reporting period ended on this date, which was 7 days from whatever. And according to our calendar, that was at midnight yesterday. So it appears that we are through. Thank you very much. I'm so glad we're through with this. Now, if they really do feel like they're going to argue, and even if they're wrong, they're still going to argue. So the reality is you can stand on legal principle and say, well, you missed it, too bad. And I'm going to tell you that's probably not the best move. This happens about 5 times a year. Buyer agent completely misses the boat on the calendar and tries to send in inspection requests after the deadline. So I take them back to the seller and I say, look, they're outside of the window. They missed the deadline. That's on them. Here's what they're asking for. Now, if it's minor stuff, I tell the seller, let's just be Santa Claus. Either fix it or offer them a little bit of money, because the odds are if we don't do this, you're going to completely empty the love tank and we're not going to make it to closing. And the seller will say, but I'm right. I know you're right. But you can be right and not have a closing, or you can be Santa Claus and still make it to closing. And by the way, completely top off the love tank when you do that, because when you do what you don't have to do for a buyer, and we're very loud about it, by the way, they don't have to fix everything, just fix something. Anything they do is a step in the right direction. Anything they do is a show of good faith. And if the deal comes unglued, we're probably going to have to fix it or disclose it anyway. So let's do the right thing. All right. So that's what you do you, but that's probably how I would handle a missed deadline. If you get the report back, I want you to, first of all, check out the inspector. Let's make sure they really are licensed, because if they're licensed by a public entity and that's public information. All you have to do is Google the name of the company and the inspector, because the companies are licensed, just like my brokerage, the Ohio Property Group, is licensed, but every human who works here also has to be licensed if they do agent type stuff. Same with home inspectors. If they're outperforming home inspections, it's not like they can have one licensed home inspector whose name is on the door and then a bunch of unlicensed flunkies doing the work. No, if they go out and perform the work, they must be licensed. So take a minute, make sure the home inspector is licensed, make sure the company they work for is licensed, because if they're not, none of this matters. Okay, we're back to the Santa Claus situation. All right. The other thing is, are the findings accurate? So an engaged seller is a successful seller. We say this all the time. I'll send the results along with what they asked for to the seller, the entire report. And I'll tell them, don't deep dive the report just yet. Look at the list of what they wanted, because sometimes it's just like a broken light switch or something really simple that's not going to cost very much, and we can just be done and move on and get past it. Keep the love tank full, because we still have to deal with the appraisal. And hopefully that's not a nightmare, but if it is, the more love that's in the tank, the better. So the seller will typically look it over, and many times they'll say, no, that's right. Yep, I see it now. I didn't know it was there, but there it is. Like, it's real. Or they'll say, no, that's wrong. Sometimes we've had reports come in for the wrong house. We've had reports come in for the right house, but they've got photos from a different inspection. They just got them mixed up on the drive or whatever. So that's why we want to double check the not just the licensed person, but the accuracy of the report, make sure it's right. Then review the request. What did they actually ask you to do? All right. If it's a double tap breaker, which if you do this long enough, you're going to see a lot of these where they've hooked in two things into one breaker. You're not supposed to do that. Okay, that's a safety issue. There's no getting around it. Is it really a safety issue? I'm not an electrician. I don't know, but electricians tell me it's a safety issue. So just because it's common doesn't mean it's safe. Stuff like that. If it's a safety issue, the buyer can walk. They can walk away. It doesn't matter how minor it is. It could be something as simple as not having a GFI outlet near water. It's a safety issue. We can argue the code and exemptions and grandfather rules and all that stuff, and maybe you're going to be right. But at the end of the day, is it worth the calories to argue this? Or could you just go spend $20 and put in a GFI? Or spend $100 and have an electrician come out and mop all of this up, if that's what it is. It's usually a litany of minor inspection issues or minor electrical issues, a litany of minor plumbing issues, and then just a few other things. That's usually what it is. If they find something major, well, let's come back to that. Most home sellers dread inspection and appraisal issues. Our digital course, Living to Listing, is the online course to teach anybody how to turn any property into the perfect listing so you sail through inspections and appraisals, you save money, you sell faster, and probably take a few strokes off your golf game. In Living to Listing, you'll get dozens of checklists, tools, and walkthrough videos from yours truly for every step. And here's my promise. If this course doesn't blow you away, just let me know. Not only will I give you a complete refund, but you'll get to keep the course. It doesn't get any better than that. You literally have nothing to lose. Head over to Living to Listing, that's livingtolisting.com, and check it out. There's a few preview videos that you can look at. Let me know what you think. So, while we're considering this list, I immediately typically reply to the buyer's camp and just say, listen, on the off chance that we can't fix this before closing, is there a certain dollar amount that would get us past this? Now, I'm the one opening the door to, hey, can we rub some money on this and make it go away? Because most of my sellers are busy moving, and unless they're contractors, they don't have the time or the inclination to hire somebody to fix this stuff, and buyers usually know this. So I want to go ahead and open the door for my seller. Now, I'm not speaking for my seller at that point. I'm just saying, can you get me some options? And the important thing here is they may say, well, what did you have in mind? And I don't give them anything. I just say, I don't know. I just asked, is there a certain dollar amount that would get us past this? And what's important is that you never throw out the first number, Okay. You need them to throw it out. Because if you throw out $500 and they would have done it for $50, silly you. If they would have done it for 5,000 and you throw out 500, bad for you. So better off letting them throw the first number. We'll talk about how to negotiate real numbers in the next part of this. So while you're going back and forth, you have to have a sense of whether or not the buyer is going to go through with this deal. Because if they're truly freaked out, they've got the option to cancel. If it's a long, ugly list of stupid stuff, a little bit of gamesmanship for you, I would reply to that and just say, wow. And I'll put this there, wow, ... Are you sure they want the house? I do it because what I want is the inevitable response from the buyer's agent that just says, oh my God, no, they love the house. It's what they always say, by the way. Oh my God, no, they love the house. They just want it to be safe, or they just don't have the resources or whatever. And then they're going to justify why they asked for this ridiculously long list of stupid stuff. But what I've done is told them that I've sent that message of, hey, we could walk away. And when you do that, that takeaway move can very often have a great effect, because now you've got them on paper saying how much they love the house, they want it. We just need to work this stuff out. It kind of smooths the road a little bit, makes it a little less petty. And then I will share that information with the seller afterwards to say, look, no, they love the house. They just don't want all this stuff wrong with it. So we kind of need to work through it. As you're considering the list of stuff they're asking for, make sure you're thinking in terms of, I can fix this now and move forward and close, or I can negotiate something in between, move forward and close. But worst case, if I go back on the market, I can't ignore this now. You can't unring the bell. You can't unknow something that you now know. And you can have it inspected with your own inspector, and maybe that first inspector was full of it. But if it's a material, safety, structural issue, health issue, environmental issue, you can't ignore it. You need to fix it. And I don't care how minor it is. If you're putting that house back on the market, and that's kind of how you need to be thinking right now, is either I need to work it out with them or I need to put it back on the market, in which case I'm going to have to address this. Material just means a safety, like I said, a safety, structural, health, environmental issue. That's what we would call material. Latent. So these are the two words that come up a lot. It's a material latent defect, and latent just means you can't see it. You didn't know it was there. So if it's like a cracked window or maybe an old furnace that's still working, that's not a latent material defect. First of all, it's not a safety or structural issue. It's not an environmental issue. And it's perfectly visible. It is not latent. Just because somebody doesn't notice something doesn't make it a latent hidden defect. And I tell buyer agents this a lot, because they'll say, man, that furnace is really old. We need it's no older than it was when you looked at the house 3 days ago. Well, I didn't notice. I understand that, but you didn't notice. We didn't hide it from you. Almost every furnace has some sort of date stamped right on it. And savvy agents know to look at that stuff. Same with water heaters. We get this a lot. Well, the water heater's at the end of its life. Really? Because it's working just fine. There was hot water in there when I was in there. And by the way, it's no older than it was when you looked at it. So I would say that's not a material latent defect. If you get a very long list, what I want you to do is separate them out. Take the material latent defects, put those in one column, use one highlighter on those. Everything else that's minor, put that in a separate column. These minor issues can be fast wins and love tank savers for you. Look at everything that's on the ticky-tacky minor list and ask yourself, how much would it really cost me in time or money to fix all of this stuff? Because it's weird. If they ask for a new furnace and 37 other little things, if you go back to them and say, we'll fix 36 things, but not the furnace, for some reason that carries some weight. I like to send their list back to them, and it just in red or blue right next to their list, I'll just write seller will address, seller will address, seller will address, seller will address. And then we get to the furnace, seller will not address, seller will address, seller will add. There it is. And that's my response. And now they've got this overwhelming list, which maybe costs $100, of stuff that we're going to fix. So that's one tactic you can definitely use. But remember that furnace, now that you know, or if you had not disclosed it before, maybe you didn't know, that furnace, it's done. It's now part of the future negotiations. So you might as well deal with it. If you think it's not bad, then by all means, call a timeout, tell them you need a few days, extend the inspection remedy period, and get somebody else out there for a second opinion. Somebody maybe that has worked on it. But hopefully you had all this inspected before you put it on the market and you've got paperwork to back it up. All right. The remedy process, once you get the inspection report, is usually no more than a couple of days. Could be as much as a week, but again, RTFC, see how much time you have and then use it. If it's a quick list and you're comfortable with all of it, just fire it right back. Just be done with it. But if you're going to play hardball, let them lose a night or two of sleep. They're not going anywhere. They could have walked away. They didn't. They asked for all this stuff. Now let's let them think about that for a day or two. Nothing wrong with that. Just don't miss a deadline. Because in some contracts, if the seller fails to respond, the deal automatically terminates. In other contracts, the Cincinnati board form, if the seller fails to respond to a buyer's requests, the seller, quote unquote, automatically accepts those requests. That is a very dangerous contract, by the way. But if you don't read it, then you don't know it. So once you've separated out your list, and if it's an easy list, knock it out and let's move on. And the way you do that is just let them know, yes, it doesn't mean you're going to fix everything right now. It just means you're going to agree to fix everything. So you will respond back saying, yes, we will do that. If you're going to do money, the money comes to them at closing. So if you promise them $1,000 or whatever to whitewash all of these issues so that they accept the home as is, that is just a reduction at closing. It can be one of two ways. It can be a reduction in the price, which is my favorite, lower the price, or it can be $1,000 in closing cost credit to the buyer at closing. I'm not as much of a fan of that, but either one works. Okay. But if I have my choice, I will lower the price. If you have to change the terms of the deal, you need two separate addendums. One is changing the terms. So if you're going to lower the price by $1,000, that's it. Just you prepare one short addendum. It references the property, the contract date, who the parties are, and then one sentence that just says purchase price is now to be whatever the number is. Everybody signs, dates, send that to the lender. Everybody else gets one that says, in order to remedy all of these issues, we're going to lower the price by $1,000. Do not send that list to the lender. If that shows up in front of the underwriter, you're going to get delayed and the underwriter may actually deny the deal, especially if it's something that the seller's agreed to reduce the price and then the buyer's going to fix after closing. You just don't want that coming up during underwriting. So now let's say there's no kumbaya, that you don't want to do what they want to do. They want more money than you want to give them. They want more repairs than you can or are willing to do. Then it's time to play hardball, because before you let this buyer walk away, I suggest, always with a smile, that you play a little bit of what we call the Ackerman game. And for those of you who have ever read, there's a book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I will link to it in the show notes. Chris Voss is a FBI negotiator. I've talked about him in past episodes, but excellent, excellent book. But anyway, he's a retired FBI hostage negotiator. So this guy knows a little bit of something about how human beings think. And he's dealing with life and death. We are just dealing with dollars. He does a whole section on the Ackerman negotiating, and this is just one tiny slice of it. But before you go to brass knuckles hardball, I want you to kind of step back from the deal and ask yourself, how solid was your activity before this deal? Because I need you to consider the real possibility that if you blow this, or the buyer if you just can't get it together with the buyer, you're going to be back out there. So I need to know how motivated you should be to get back out there. If you had 15 offers in 2 days, yeah, I would have no concerns. In fact, I would talk to them openly. Hey, by the way, I've only got 14 other buyers I can call for this house. And don't be a jerk about it, but you can subtly remind people, hey, with the strength of our backup offers, it's very difficult for us to justify what you're asking for. Or with the strength and number of backup offers and interested buyers that we still have, it's very difficult for us to justify lowering the price. Great lines to use. If you're bluffing, hopefully you're really good at it. All right. Do you even have backup buyers? If you have backup buyers, again, let's wave them around a little bit. I don't care if the backup buyer is $50,000 less than this one. You don't have to tell them that. You just need to remind them gently that there is a backup, that you're not going to be just left out in the cold, because you don't want them thinking, ha, 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 we've got him over a barrel. That seller's not going to want to walk away. I would guess the buyer probably has more to lose than you do. All right. So if you had solid activity and you have backup buyers, then just draw a line and let them know your position. Just draw a line and say, listen, this is what I'm going to do. Yes or no. If you want to circumvent this whole process before you go hardball, that is the ultimate short version of hardball. Here's what I'm going to do, yes or no. It's not going to make you any friends, but it will definitely get the process moving. If you had no activity, no showings, this was your only buyer and they paid you more than you thought you'd get, probably time to open up your checkbook and make this deal happen, because you don't want to go back on the market having to explain it and be met with no activity, because you're going to end up, I promise you, selling that house for a lot less money. Probably it's going to cost you more. So assuming you are okay with negotiating a little bit, if you've got a gap that you would like to save the deal, this is how I would approach it. So I prefer it if they throw out the first number, but at the end of the day, whatever gets it done. So typically I will take the gap between what they want and what the seller is willing to do. And I will ask the seller, what's your final number? And then I will offer up 65% of that number. That's my first number, 65% of whatever the seller's willing to do. Okay. So if the seller says, I'll go up to 10 grand for these repairs, then I will start by offering 6,500. But if you're the seller, if you know you're willing to go to $10,000, offer up 6,500. You would be shocked how many times they take your first offer. It's crazy, but it happens. The next move for you, assuming it's not higher than what they offered, if they come back somewhere between 6,500 and 10 grand, then you're there. Take that number and go. But my next move, if they're still not within my 10 grand range, is to go 85%. So then I will come back at 8,500, but I'm going to be a little more specific. I'm not going to say 8,500. I'm going to say like 8,460, something like that. 8,450. And, we get a little bit more specific with that number. And this is right out of the book. So if you go read the book, he tells the story a lot better than I do. The next move is 95%. But with that 95%, I'm going to try to throw in something non-monetary. Remember during inspections when I told you to pay attention to stuff they were asking about? Hey, what about the swing set? Hey, I don't care if you were going to leave it for the junk person or give it away or sell it for next to nothing. Ask yourself, could I throw something in to sweeten the pot and bring this deal together? Something that doesn't cost me that much, but means a lot to them. That's where non-monetary stuff comes in. And I love furniture. I love outdoor equipment, things like that really have no place in the deal, but maybe they want it. So maybe you're leaving behind an in-ground pool, of course, because it's built in, but you never said anything about all the chemicals in the equipment. You could just say, hey, look, we'll leave all, like, there's $3,000 worth of stuff out there. We'll leave that for you. Maybe you're going to leave it anyway, but now we can use it as a negotiating tool. So now 95%, and then eventually you're going to go to your final number, and that number needs to be a very oddball number. So I'm not going to do $10,000. I'm going to do some weird number. Usually I end with a 1. So $9,991 or something very, very specific that makes it feel like, according to Mr. Voss, that you've put a lot of thought into this number. So more specific, oddball numbers as you get closer and closer to your target. But it's not unusual to have the buyer accept one of your earlier numbers. They may even comment on how weird this is, but it works. Trust me, this works. I thought this is like a little skeptical going in. I mean, but after the first 12, 15 times I tried it and it worked, I was like, okay, never mind. This guy really, really does have the goods. I thought it's one thing to negotiate a hostage situation with a ransom. We're talking about a less volatile situation. Is this weird? It works. It just works. So the final offer, when you hear this is our final offer, it almost never is their final offer. Just keep rolling ahead until they walk away and stop communicating. It's not their final offer. So just keep going until you get there, and keep negotiating until they ask to get out of the deal. That's when you know they're serious. Another thing you can throw in besides furniture is a home warranty. If they're very concerned about that old furnace, this is the time. I don't like offering home warranties right out of the gate. Some listing agents love to tack them on there. By the way, a lot of listing agents get kickbacks on those home warranties. That's why they do them. I like to save them and only bring them out if we're in this situation, we're negotiating remedy. That is a great time to say, you know what if we bought a 1-year home warranty, 2-year home warranty? It's it's, $500, $600, $700, whatever it is. If it's cheaper than giving them the farm or losing them as a buyer, then this is a great idea. That is how we do this. And when it's all done, get it typed up, get it signed. You got a clean copy with just the terms changes for the lender, and then you've got everything else spelled out. If there are repairs involved, remember, you're only agreeing to do those repairs, and you have generally until closing to do them. So what you want to do is get the repairs done, Specify who's doing them. If they say professional, qualified contractor, and you're not a qualified contractor, you need permission to do those things yourself, or you could have a problem down the road. Just say, hey, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to address them. The seller will address them. If you're going to hire somebody, that's fine. Just make sure you keep the paperwork or take photos or do something to document that the work was done. As things get knocked off the list, send it to the buyer's camp, either through your broker or directly, depending on how you're working. So if it says fix all the traps under the sinks, as soon as that's done, send a note, send a picture, send a plumber's bill that says this is done, and document all of this before the final walkthrough, which is where they're going to look to see that all this stuff is done. All right. Well, there you have it. That's my entire playbook for inspections. And I know this was a long journey, but this is as simple and quantified as I could make it. There's just so many variables in the inspection process, but I don't want to hold anything back. I want you to have all the tools that we have developed. So real quick, back to Jessica. So you remember we had a great deal. We were in multiples. We took the deal because we had a pre-sale home inspection, and we felt very confident. And then they asked for $10,000 for a roof that didn't need to be replaced. I'll bet you can guess Jessica's response. We had backup offers, by the way. We had incredible interest prior to accepting this offer, and we still had people asking about the house even after it went under contract. So we knew we weren't going to have a tough time selling it. So we went straight hardball, short version, and just told them no, nothing. We didn't offer them a single thing. I found out later they were just hoping for something, just anything, something, just to make it go away. And they got nothing. They got nada, zippo. Have a nice day. We quoted their inspector back to them. I sent them screenshots of their own report, which I can't even believe we had to do. And then we started a whisper campaign, waiting for them to respond. We went straight to our other buyers and said, hey, looks like we're going to maybe end up back on the street with this property. Do you want a shot at it before we market? We put it back out for the public. And this is a great tactic because it helps build the confidence, bolster the confidence of everybody involved. And I'm not shy about it. There's lots of ways to maybe leak to the buyer's camp that you are actively seeking other offers. Like you're moving on, you're done. That got their attention when we shared subtly with the buyer's agent that not only did we have backup offers, but we were getting more inquiries about this property. We were ready to go. So, hey, I need an answer. That was my justification. Hey, I got to tell these buyers, these other buyers something, because we got other people that want to buy this house. So is your buyer in or out? Yeah, that was all it took. They were like, sorry. Yeah, we'll take it as is. So we got a brand new post-inspection report, said they'll take the house as is, no money, no repairs, no nothing. And all's well that ends well. It did damage the relationship with the buyer and the seller because they had a really good thing going and they felt like it was kind of dirty. But, you know, that's not the end of the world. I don't think it damaged it critically because from what I understand, they talked at the walkthrough and everything was okay. So, but anyway, head to talkingrealty.com to pick up the 50 pages of checklists like this. It includes this checklist. I'll link directly to that one in the show notes, but I'll also link to the entire packet. It's free. You can get it anytime. And it's got tons of stuff. It's got an overview. It's got all, offer checklists and pre-sale checklists and appraisal check. It's got every checklist. We are checklist lovers here. And so it's all there. It's free. It's awesome. And it's all for you. So just to drive it home, if you prep the house correctly, you're going to solve a lot of these problems. If you're transparent with your future buyers, you're going to solve a lot of and avoid a lot of these headaches. And if you're strategic with your negotiation, both during the offer and during the inspection phase, you will win. You can sell it. You can do this and you can walk away with everything intact. So in the next episode, we are going to talk about what to do if the worst happens and the deal dies. We're going to dive deep into that nightmare scenario. So make sure you stick around and see how we professionally rebound a property when, for whatever reason, the deal didn't make it to the closing table. And with that, I will let you get back to your day. Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully you had a little fun, maybe learned a thing or two. If so, please share this episode either privately or on the socials. Feel free to tag me if you do. Quick reminder that the Talking Realty podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Property Group, a family-owned brokerage serving all 88 Ohio counties with realtor services. If you have questions, topics, guests you would like to hear or see in future episodes, I would love to hear from you. Just head over to talkingrealty.com or check out the show notes for my contact information and say hello. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, keep making smart moves in your real estate journey. For the Ohio Property Group, this is Glen Whitten signing off, and remember, you can sell it. We can help.